On a cold night, a girl named Suzu is dragged out into a shed by her father because he can't stand looking at her. He wishes Suzu had never been born, and he plans to leave her out here all night. But a few minutes later, her brother Jinta comes out and tries to get free her. However, he is shocked to discover that she's not there. He frantically runs around the village looking for Suzu, and he eventually finds her as she is crossing a bridge to leave the village. He rushes over to her and apologizes for not being able to protect her from their father's abuse, because he will just get in trouble if he tries to protect her. Suzu was born with a demon eye, and this is feudal Japan, so she has been labeled as a cursed child and is treated like a worthless pest. She knows there's no way she can live a normal life with an eye like this, so she tells Jinta to just go home without her. Jinta stands there for a moment, contemplating his next move, and eventually, he decides that he loves his sister more than the rest of the family, so he takes her hand and asks her to run away with him. Together, they flee their old home, but it's still raining, so it's starting to get really cold out here. They have nowhere to go for shelter, so Jinta takes Suzu to the remains of an old building, and the two huddle up together to try to conserve body heat. Suzu has already fallen asleep and Jinta is about to pass out as well, but before he does, he notices a man approaching them, and he says something about taking them in. By the time Jinta wakes up, he finds himself being carried by the man with Suzu walking alongside him. The man is relieved to see that Jinta is finally awake, so he sets him down and they continue walking until they get to the man's village. The village is mostly inhabited by blacksmiths who specialize in forging katanas, so everyone is hard at work right now. The man leaves Jinta and Suzu to his house, and as soon as he opens the door, his daughter runs out to greet him. She is happy to see him, but she's also curious about the two kids standing behind him, so the man tells her that Jinta and Suzu will be living with them from now on. He asks his daughter if she's okay with that, and she actually seems thrilled by the idea since that means she'll have friends to play with. She walks up to Jinta to introduce herself as Shirayuki, and she hopes all three of them can get along with each other from now on. That night, Jinta is having trouble getting to sleep, so Motoharu asks him if something is wrong. Motoharu is currently cleaning his sword, so Jinta asks him if he is a samurai, but Motoharu says he is actually a sentinel, so his job is to keep important people and places safe. Later, Jinta and Suzu join Shirayuki and Chitose by the river. On the way home, Jinta asks about Shirayuki's mother, Yokaze, who helped him and Suzu stay in the village. Shirayuki explains that Yokaze is an Itsukiheim, a fire god's maiden, and can only be seen by the village chief and her husband Motoharu, her sentinel. The next day, Jinta trains with Motoharu, but as a novice in sword fighting, he's easily knocked to the ground without Motoharu breaking a sweat. He tells Jinta that he still has a long way to go, but if he keeps practicing, then he will surely become a master someday. Years go by and Jinta has become the new sentinel of the Shrine Maiden, so he is attending a meeting between all the village officials and the Shrine Maiden. She is hidden behind a curtain so no one can see her directly, and as the meeting begins, she commends Jinta for his excellent demon-slaying abilities. He tells her he is just doing his job by keeping this village safe, and the most recent demon he encountered tried using a human form to sneak into the village. One of the officials starts getting nervous once Jinta says this, and the others ask if he has any idea why a demon would want to sneak into the village. One official suggests that the demon may be after the Shrine Maiden, because legend has it that if a demon eats the liver of a Shrine Maiden, it will become immortal. But it might also be after the Sacred Yurei sword. It has been passed down by the Shrine Maidens for generations, and it is quite important, so it would make sense for the demons to be after it. One of the officials mentions that the Yurei sword was created by one of the best blacksmiths known to man, and it is said to have mystical powers imbued within it. If the demons are truly after the Yurei blade, then it could spell trouble for the entire village, so the chief tells everyone to remain vigilant. But Kivamasa says there's nothing to worry about because both he and Jinta are in charge of guarding the Shrine Maiden. But he personally thinks Jinta isn't qualified for the job. Jinta and Kiyomasa are about to start arguing, but the chief and the Shrine Maiden tell them to quiet down. The meeting is now over, so everyone leaves the shrine except Jinta because it's his job to guard the Shrine Maiden. Now that they are alone, the Shrine Maiden comes out of her room, and it turns out to be Shirayuki. Jinta asks her what she's doing because a Shrine Maiden shouldn't allow herself to be seen so carelessly, but she and Jinta have been best friends for ages, so she sees no need for formalities. She tells him that Suzu is here too, but the shrine is supposed to be off limits to regular people, so she really shouldn't be here. Suzu doesn't look like she's grown up at all in the past few years, and when Jinta and Shirayuki wake her up, she is elated to see her big brother again. Jinta has been so busy with demon slaying that she barely ever gets to see him, but while he is happy to see her too, he scolds Suzu for coming here since the shrine is off limits. She doesn't understand why she can't visit Shirayuki, But Jinta gets to see her whenever he wants, but rules are rules, so Jinta tells her to go back to their house. After Suzu leaves, the chief soon returns to the shrine, and he has something important he has to discuss with Shirayuki, so he asks Jinta to give them some privacy. Jinta initially refuses because it is his duty as Shirayuki's sentinel to be by her side at all times, but Shirayuki tells him he can take the day off. So Jinta eventually relents and heads home for the day. Meanwhile, outside the village, two demons have set their sights on Suzu because of her demon eye. That evening, Shirayuki sneaks out of the shrine and meets up with Jinta because she has something important she wants to tell him. When the chief came to speak with her earlier, he told her that she should focus on producing an heir to replace her in case she ends up being killed by the demons. It sounds morbid, but the chief is right, so Shirayuki needs to get married soon, and it was decided that she will marry Kiyomasa, mostly because he is the son of the chief and will eventually become the new chief of the village. Jinta isn't sure how he should feel about the news, and Shirayuki isn't happy about it either. She admits that she is in love with Jinta, and honestly, she snuck out here fully intending to ask Jinta to run away with her and start a new life, but she knows he would never agree to that. Jinta took an oath to protect this village and trained for years to become strong enough to defend it. And Shirayuki took the same oath when she became the village's shrine maiden, so if they were to run away now, it would be an insult to everything they have worked for. More time passes and Jinta is once again called into a meeting where he is informed of a demon sighting out in the forest. He is tasked with slaying the demon, so he prepares to head out immediately. However, before he leaves, Kiyomasa stops him. He knows Jinta must have heard the news about Shirayuki getting married to him, so he doesn't understand why Jinta is acting like he's not upset. Jinta tells him there's nothing to be upset about because the only things that matter to him are the safety of his shrine maiden and the village. The crazy thing about this is that Kiyomasa isn't even trying to gloat about marrying Shirayuki. He knows Jinta is in love with Shirayuki, and she's in love with Jinta, so it just feels messed up for him to marry her. But Jinta has already made his decision, so he leaves the village to complete his mission. Once he makes it out into the forest, Jinta is suddenly attacked by the bulky demon. Before the fight begins, he asks the demon if it's alone because the reports said there were two demons out here, and the bulky demon explains that his partner had some business to attend to in the village. That doesn't sound good, but Jinta is going to have to deal with this guy first before he can head back to deal with the second demon. He dashes forward, and with a heavy swing, he is able to sever one of the demon's arms, but the demon keeps attacking, so he is forced to back away. The demon picks up its severed hand, and it isn't even upset about losing it. He is just impressed that Jinta was skilled enough to cut it off. Meanwhile, in the village, Suzu is confronted by the demon baddie, and she is absolutely terrified. The demon tells Suzu that there's no need to be so frightened because Suzu is a demon just like her, but Suzu refuses to believe it. The demon takes one look at Suzu and realizes that her love for Jinta must be keeping her from becoming a full demon, and she finds it quite oppressive because Jinta must have showered Suzu with constant love and affection to make her such a good person. Suzu loves Jinta with all her heart, so hearing the demon praise Jinta puts her at ease. Now that Suzu is no longer scared of her, the demon tries to convince Suzu to use her powers to help her. She even promises that she won't hurt Suzu in any way, and everyone knows demons can't lie, so she says Suzu can trust her. However, Suzu rejects her offer because there's a chance that the demons might hurt Jinta. The demon girl can't deny that, so she tries using a different method to convince Suzu and shows her a vision. The vision shows Shirayuki undressing and getting ready to take back shots in the shrine. And seeing this makes Suzu sick, but because of the back shots, but because it wasn't Jinta giving them to her. She asks the demon if what she saw was real, so she explains that her ability allows her to see into the future. She can also share visions of the future with others as well, which is what Suzu just saw, but if Suzu still doesn't believe her, then she's willing to take her to the shrine right now so she can see it in person. Meanwhile, Jinta is still fighting the bulky demon, but before the fight continues, he wants to know why the demons attack humans in the first place. The demon explains that it is simply its purpose in life. Demons don't necessarily have to kill humans, but every demon has an intended purpose they must fulfill, and right now, the bulky demon's purpose is to stall Jikan. Bulk has the power of assimilation, so he can acquire the abilities of other demons by eating them, even allowing him to alter his body at will. Jikan can't afford to hesitate here, so he charges forward in an attempt to kill Bulk once and for all. However, he immediately gets his arm punched off, and when he tries to slash Bulk's neck, Bulk shatters it with his teeth. By all accounts, Jikan should be a dead man, but at the last second, he reaches back and grabs a piece of his shattered sword. He then plunges the fragment deep into Bulk's heart before Bulk could retaliate, so Jikan emerges victorious. Bulk accepts his defeat, and he is actually quite happy because this means he has fulfilled his purpose. He explains that the other demon he came with has the power of foresight, and she has used it to look far into the future, 170 years to be exact. And according to her vision, the strongest demon of all time lives here, which is why they came in the first place. As soon as Bulk mentions a demon living in the village, Jiken realizes he must be talking about Suzu, but before he can react, Bulk says he's going to give Jiken a gift to congratulate him on his victory. A second later, Bulk's severed arm grabs Jiken's head and begins squeezing him until he passes out. Meanwhile, over in the shrine, Kiyomasa is on top of Shirayuki. All he needs to do is make a child with her, so he is hoping to get it over with once and for all. And since Jiken is away on a mission, this is the perfect time. Otherwise, Jiken would have to sit outside and listen to the sound of Shirayuki getting pile-drive, and Kiyomasa feels bad enough about this already. However, before anything could happen, the demon girl tears through the curtains to show Suzu what's going on, and she's absolutely devastated. At the same time, Jinta wakes up in the forest, and for some reason, his missing arm has been restored, but he doesn't have time to worry about that because Suzu might be in trouble, so he starts running back to the village. Meanwhile, Suzu is still trying to understand what she just witnessed. It was unbearable to see Jinta in love with Shirayuki, but Suzu was willing to put up with it if Jinta got to be happy. She even stopped herself from growing up so she wouldn't get in the way of Jinta and Shirayuki's relationship. But now she finds out that Shirayuki is marrying a different guy. This was the final straw, so Suzu snaps and becomes unhinged. She was so frustrated that Shirayuki would betray Jiken's love, and after a few suggestive words from the demon girl, Suzu decides to kill her. Her demon power suddenly awakens, and the whole room is filled with black smoke as Suzu takes an adult form. Kiyomasa takes the legendary sword and tries to attack Suzu, but the demon girl knocks him out before he could do anything. She then takes Kiyomasa's body outside because she has something she wants to do, leaving Shirayuki alone with Suzu. Jinta soon arrives at the shrine and Shirayuki is still alive, so she runs into his arms, but a second later, her head is cut off by Suzu. Jinta is frozen in shock by what just happened, and a moment later, Suzu appears behind him holding Shirayuki's head. Jinta asks Suzu why she would do such a thing, so Suzu starts explaining the whole thing about Shirayuki marrying another man, but he already knew about it, and even if he didn't, it doesn't give her the right to kill Shirayuki. Jinta realizes that the Suzu he cared for is long gone, and with Shirayuki dead, he has nothing left except hatred. The demon arm begins to integrate with the rest of his body, transforming Jinta, and now he is looking at Suzu with pure disdain. She doesn't understand why he looks like he hates her so much when all she was trying to do is make him happy. She takes this to mean that Jinta is going to abandon her just like everyone else, so she decides to just kill him. However, as she stabs Jinta in the stomach, she realizes it did almost no damage, and Jinta proceeds to punch a hole straight through her body. Suzu manages to survive the punch, so Jinta tries to finish her off, but at the last second, the demon girl jumps in and sacrifices herself to save Suzu. She tells Suzu to get out of here while she has the chance, so she starts walking away, but before she leaves, Suzu tells Jinta that she has nothing left in this world, so no matter how many years it takes, she's going to make sure she destroys everything. And on the final day, she will be back to kill him for betraying her. By the 1850s, Jinta, now known as Jinya, had built up an excellent reputation as a demon hunter, so one day, he is summoned by a wealthy man for a special mission. The man introduces Jinya to his assistant Zenji and tells him he can ask Zenji for any extra details about the job. He then gets up and leaves the room, so Zenji greets Jinya and asks him how much he already knows. The man already told Jinya about his beloved daughter, Natsu, and how he wants Jinta to protect her from a demon that has appeared lately. But there's a little more to the story than that. Basically, Jinya is going to be working as Natsu's bodyguard, because ever since she turned 13, she says she has been hearing a demon outside her room. The demon would constantly say things like, "Return my daughter to me," so Natsu is terrified that the demon might kidnap her. Speaking of Natsu, she suddenly comes storming into the room looking for Zenji. She notices Jinya sitting there and assumes he must be the bodyguard that her father said he would hire, but when Jinya tries to introduce himself, she cuts him off. She doesn't want anything to do with him and tells him to leave immediately because he is obviously some kind of scam artist who only claims to be a demon slayer. Zenji tries to convince her that Jinya is a genuine demon slayer because her father went to great lengths to find him, but Natsu refuses to listen and demands that Zenji kick Jinya out. Later that night, Natsu is sitting up in her bed because she is still scared that the demon will return. So Zenji shows up and sits outside her door to calm her nerves. Having Jinya probably would have been better, but since Natsu chased him away, Zenji is going to have to act as her bodyguard instead. He's not sure how useful he would be in a fight against a demon, but if it will make her feel better, he promises to stand guard until morning so she can get some sleep. Natsu is glad that Zenji came to protect her, but he still doubts that a demon will show up at all. Natsu is disappointed to hear that Zenji doesn't fully believe her, and it was the same with her father, because why else would he hire a shady samurai to slay a demon? Zenji can't be sure that Natsu's father believes that demons exist, but he can guarantee that her father is taking this seriously. He cares about Natsu's well-being wholeheartedly, even though she's not biologically related to him. Just then, Natsu hears the demon's voice again, and it sends shivers down her spine. She begs Zenji to help her, but he's just as scared as she is once he sees the demon. He tells Natsu to stay inside her room while he handles this, but he has no idea how he's going to defeat this thing. Just before the demon could get its hands on Zenji, his arm is suddenly cut off by Jinya. Jinya asks the demon to identify itself at first, but when it doesn't respond, he decides to just cut it in half with one swing of his sword. The demon falls to the floor and disintegrates into black smoke, so Zenji and Natsu are safe for now. Natsu recognizes Jinya as the samurai she kicked out earlier today, so he turns around and asks her if she still thinks he is a scam artist. Natsu asks him if the demon is dead, but killing it isn't going to be that easy. In Jinya's experience, demons are only truly dead once they turn into white mist, so since this one turned into black mist, it will definitely be back. The next morning, Zenji formally thanks Jinya for saving them last night, and since the demon is going to come back, he asks Jinya to stick around for another night. Jinya says he'd be happy to help, but he has a few questions he would like to ask about Natsu. He's been curious ever since he heard the demon say, "Return my daughter to me," so he wants to know if there's a story behind it. Zenji explains that Natsu's real parents are part of the boss's extended family, but they passed away a while ago, so the boss took Natsu in and raised her as his own. And in case Jinya is worried, Zenji assured him that there's no way that Natsu is a demon child. Because if she were, there's no way the boss would have even considered adopting her. The boss's wife was killed by demons, and following that, his son ran away and hasn't been seen since. The boss blames the loss of his family on the demons, so he hates all demons with every fiber of his being. Later that evening, Natsu is having dinner with her father, and he asks her if everything has been going alright with her new bodyguard. At first, she was a little skeptical of Jinya, but after seeing him in action, she's sure that he's the real deal. Although Natsu is curious why her father chose to hire Jinya specifically. He tells her that there have been rumors of demons prowling around Ada recently, but at the same time, there are also rumors of a man who can slay any demon with a single slash as long as he gets paid for it. Natsu's father has personally verified the rumors, so he knew there would be no better person to hire as Natsu's bodyguard. Natsu is glad to learn that her father was really taking her seriously when she told him about the demon, because his love is all she cares about. Natsu has been very happy ever since he adopted her, but at the same time, she's been constantly tormented by all the hateful gossip people spread about her. Later that night, Zenji and Jinya are sitting outside Natsu's room as planned, when all of a sudden she comes out and asks Jinya to tell her his name because she didn't let him introduce himself before. Natsu's father seems to think highly of him, so she has decided that she's going to put her faith in him as well. Jinya can tell that Natsu is quite fond of her adoptive father, Juzo, but that's normal because he took her in and gave her a place to stay, so she's very grateful to him. While they are on the topic, Jinya asks her about a rumor he heard involving Juzo's lost son, but as soon as he brings that up, Natsu yells that she doesn't know anything about it. This is clearly a sensitive topic for her, so Jinya decides to let it go for now so he doesn't upset her. Natsu then asks Jinya if it is possible for a human and a demon to have a baby together, and Jinya answers yes, so Natsu starts thinking that she might really be the daughter of that demon that keeps attacking. But Jinya assures her that she is not related to that demon in any way. Natsu asks Jinya how he could possibly be so sure, so he explains that he has a bit of history with this demon, so he knows it can't be Natsu's mother. There are various ways that a demon can be born in this world. It can come from two demon parents, a demon and a human, or in rarer cases, a demon can spawn from nothing. Demons like this come from the essence of strong emotions, especially negative ones. And when those negative feelings accumulate within people, they can sometimes take the form of a demon such as this one. Natsu starts freaking out after seeing the demon again, so Jinya casually walks up to it and starts asking it to state its name. The demon doesn't seem intelligent enough to understand what Jinya is saying. As it lunges at him, Jinya smacks it across the face and pins it to the ground. Zenji urges Jinya to hurry up and kill the demon already, but Jinya replies that if he does, it will just keep coming back. Natsu asks him why, so Jinya explains that it was her emotions that gave birth to this demon. The demon appeared in response to Natsu's belief that causing a fuss would make her father focus his attention on her. Natsu initially refuses to believe it, but everything Jinya is saying makes perfect sense. She wanted something to make her father treat her like a real daughter, and all of a sudden, a monster appeared to make that happen. Jinya tells her that the only way this demon will ever go away is if she regains control over her feelings, but Natsu doesn't know how she's supposed to do that. Jinya tells her that all she needs to do is come to terms with the way she feels and earnestly ask him to slay the demon. Natsu thinks for a moment and realizes all she ever wanted was to be loved by Juzo as his daughter, but she didn't think he cared about her that way. That's why she ended up believing that if she were attacked by a demon, that maybe he would start loving her more. And now those ugly emotions have manifested in front of her, so in a sense that demon is her. However, Zenji tells her not to think like that. That demon may have been born from her feelings, but that's not what matters right now. Zenji knows that Juzo loves Natsu more than anything in the world, and Natsu loves him just as much, but neither of them is good at expressing it. She'll need to start addressing her feelings more honestly from now on, but Zenji swears that he will be by her side to help her through it. This gives Natsu the confidence to finally let go of the doubt and self-loathing that spawned the demon, so she tells Jinya to kill it once and for all. And as soon as Jinya hears those words, he pulls out his sword and slashes the demon in half. This time, the demon's body fades into a white mist, so Jinya is certain that it isn't going to come back anymore. However, later on in the night, after Natsu has gone back to bed, the demon's body begins to rematerialize. Jinya expected something like this to happen because if the demon was truly formed from only Natsu's negative emotions, then it would have ceased existing as soon as she made the decision to let go of them. That means the emotions of someone else were mixed into this demon, and as far as Jinya knows, there's only one other person in this region who had the potential to be a demon, and that was Juzo's dead wife. With Natsu's negative emotions gone, the demon is struggling to keep its shape, but the daughter it keeps calling out for isn't Natsu, it's Suzu. That means Jinya is Juzo's missing son, and this demon is his and Suzu's mother. To be perfectly honest, Jinya has no clear memories of what his mother was like when she was still alive, but he is sad that things ended up this way. And all he can do now is put an end to his mother's suffering, so she can finally move on. The next morning, Jinya is set to leave, so Zenji and Natsu come out to thank him again for all his help. Jinya tells them there's no need to thank him because he already got his reward, and besides, this is his way of making amends. Natsu doesn't understand what he means, so Jinya explains that getting older has allowed him to reflect on his actions in the past. While he believed he was doing the right thing by running away with Suzu back then, he never stopped to consider how his actions would affect his father or the world for that matter. Natsu still doesn't understand what he's talking about, so Jinya just tells her to appreciate the kindness that her father shows her. He then starts walking away, and a few moments later, Juzo comes out. Zenji asks why Juzo didn't come out to thank Jinya as well, but he didn't see a reason to, because he knew from the moment that Jinya arrived that he would be able to get the job done. Zenji wonders why Juzo would have so much faith in a random demon slayer, but Juzo says it's perfectly normal for a parent to have faith in their child. The others still haven't figured out that Jinya is Juzo's son, and Juzo doesn't intend to explain it to them, so he tells Zenji to get back to work already or he's going to be demoted. Zenji doesn't want that, so he leaves to go do his job, and Juzo starts leaving as well, but before he does, Natsu has something she wants to say. She asks him if there's anything she can do to help out, but Juzo is curious as to why she would ask. She explains that Jinya told her she should repay Juzo for his kindness, and Juzo is happy to know that Jinya still thinks of him as a good person, but he tells Natsu that she doesn't need to worry about repaying him because the best way a child could ever make their parent happy is by living a long and happy life. Jinya continues his journey, and after traveling for a while, he ends up in a new village and is currently in a soba shop for lunch. The owner prepares his meal for him and hands it over to his daughter, Ofu, so she can take it to Jinya's table. She is still new at this, so she has been practicing to make sure she doesn't spill the food. Her father is proud that she didn't make a mess this time, but speaking of a mess, her father mentions how there have been a series of murders going on recently. The word on the street is that there's a serial killer in town, but the emperor refuses to get off his lazy butt and do something about it. Jinya warns him to be careful about what he says because people can be executed for insulting the emperor like that. But Jinya isn't the kind of person to snitch, and he happens to really like this shop, so he doesn't want to see it get destroyed. While they are on the topic, the man asks Jinya why he keeps coming to this shop. Ofu tells her father to stop bothering Jinya while he's eating, or he might not come back again, but this is the 5th day in a row that Jinya has stopped here to eat, so he's practically a regular already. Once Jinya is done eating, he pays her father for the meal, but before he leaves, her father asks him why he has so much money on hand. He's not accusing Jinya of anything, but Ronins are usually broke, so he's wondering where Jinya gets his money. Jinya explains that he works as a demon hunter, and her father doesn't really believe that demons exist, but he has been hearing some troubling rumors lately. People think that the serial killer might actually be a demon, because all the victims that were found had their bodies terribly mangled, and several more people simply went missing without a trace. That definitely sounds like a demon, so Jinya asks her father where the slasher was last seen so he can go take a look. All this talk about demons and serial killers is getting Ofu worried, so before Jinya leaves, she makes him promise to be careful out there. Later that night, Jinya heads to the bridge where the slasher was last spotted, hoping to slay him, but after waiting for several hours, nothing happens. He's about to give up for the night and head back home, but just then he hears the sound of a girl screaming for help, so he rushes to go help. But by the time he gets there, all he finds is a bunch of mangled corpses. However, all the corpses here are men, so the slasher must have abducted the woman. While Jinya is still trying to figure out what's going on, he suddenly senses something coming his way, so he instinctively dodges and barely manages to evade a sword slash. His attacker seems to be invisible, so Jinya can't keep track of him and gets slashed in the back. He is certain that the attacker must be a demon, and since there's no one around to see him, he doesn't have to hide his demon arm anymore. The invisible demon charges forward and tries to slash Jinya again, but Jinya's body is too hard now, so the sword shatters upon contact. Now that he isn't holding back, he is ready to slay the slasher demon once and for all, but before he can do anything, the demon throws his arms in the air and says he doesn't want to fight anymore. His name is Mosuke, and he says the only reason he attacked Jinya was because he was trying to hunt down the slasher as well. He had heard rumors about the slasher being a demon, and he happened to sense a demon nearby, so he naturally assumed it was the slasher, and when he got here, Jinya was the only person he saw. If what he says is true, Jinya asks why a demon would be hunting down a serial killer, but it's a long story, so Mosuke suggests that they should go somewhere more private before someone spots them. Mosuke leads Jinya to his house, and once they sat down, he explains that as demons grow older, some choose to blend in with humans and live in society peacefully. Demons are incapable of lying, but as long as no one directly asks him if he's a demon, he can keep his secret. Mosuke is the superior demon who has lived for over 100 years, so he was able to manifest the ability to turn invisible. People usually assume that superior demons are strong, but in Mosuke's case, he's still weaker and slower than a regular demon. Jinya knows that Mosuke isn't the slasher, but he is curious about why he is so invested in taking out the real slasher. And Mosuke explains that he has a personal grudge. The slasher kills male victims on the spot, but the female victims are always kidnapped. And Mosuke knows this for a fact because his wife was one of the victims. Her name was Hatsu, and she always treated him with kindness despite knowing that he was a demon. But then, around a month ago, she vanished without a trace. 10 days later, her body was found near the Kanda River, and from the report that was given, she looked like she was horribly tortured before she died. Mosuke refuses to let such injustice go unpunished because Hatsu didn't deserve to suffer such a horrible death. Mosuke isn't particularly fond of humans, but he genuinely loved his wife more than anything, so he has nothing but hatred for the slasher who killed her. He wants to avenge his wife on his own, so he asks Jinya to leave the slasher hunt to him, but Jinya can't agree to that. Hunting demons is his goal in life, so he can't simply ignore this one. Mosuke understands his point, so he offers to work together with Jinya so they can both track down the slasher. But he asks Jinya to let him be the one to slay the slasher when the time comes. Jinya is fine with the arrangement, but he asks Mosuke if he's sure that revenge is what he wants. When they actually do find the slasher, Mosuke will be forced to bear the burden of killing a person, and you may not be ready for that. However, Mosuke is well aware of what it means to kill a person, and he is sure he wants to do this. Since they both reached an understanding, they both spend the next few nights walking through town and asking people if they've seen anything strange happen lately. But unfortunately, even after several nights of searching, they haven't been able to find any good leads, so they are still stuck at square one. They decided to take a break for the night and head back to Mosuke's house to have a drink. While they are enjoying the booze, they start talking and Mosuke asks Jinya why he chooses to hunt demons when he himself is one. Jinya has two main reasons for hunting demons. For one, it earns him a decent amount of money, so he never has to worry about having cash. There are a lot of people who hate demons, so he charges them a fair amount in exchange for slaying their demons. He asks Mosuke if the idea of killing demons for profit upsets him, but Mosuke doesn't really care about what happens to other demons. And besides, he has no right to criticize how Jinya earns his money when he is happily drinking the booze Jinya bought with that money. Mosuke recalls him mentioning something about a second reason, so he asks about it since there has to be more to this whole demon slayer profession than just money. Jinya explains that he is also slaying demons because he wants to amass power for a future battle. He has made it his mission in life to stop a certain demon, and he is going to need all the strength he can get to pull it off. Mosuke finds it strange that Jinya used the word stop instead of kill when referring to this particular demon, so he knows there must be a backstory here. Ever since he watched this demon kill the woman that he loved, killing demons has felt completely natural to him. But when he thinks about confronting Suzu, he hasn't decided whether he really wants to kill her or not. Either way, he's still going to need to grow stronger if he wants to face her in the future, but after that, he's not sure what he's going to do. Jinya asks Mosuk what he plans to do after avenging the death of his wife, but Mosuk doesn't really have any plans in mind. Part of the reason he disguised himself as a human is because he hates violence. He doesn't want to be hunted down by humans, nor does he want to have to fight other demons, so his goal has always been to live a quiet life in this village. He just wishes he could live his quiet life with his wife by his side. With that said, once he has avenged her, he plans to go back to living as a regular human and keeping her memory alive. The next day, Jinya heads back to the soba shop and orders his usual meal. While he's seated, Ofu asks him if his hunt for the slasher has been going well, but he hasn't had much luck yet. And it's a real shame too, because a pretty waitress like Ofu shouldn't have to worry about a slasher in the neighborhood. Ofu gets flustered after hearing Jinya say that she's pretty, and her father jumps at the opportunity to be his daughter's wingman. He asks Jinya if he has taken a liking to Ofu, but she's getting really embarrassed, so she tells her father to stop already. He tells her he's just trying to help since she has never had a real relationship, but while that may be true, she is perfectly capable of finding a partner for herself. And until then, she just wants to stay by her father's side. She apologizes to Jinya for her father's forwardness, but Jinya says he doesn't mind because he can tell that her father is a good man who's just trying to do what's best for his daughter. Ofu agrees and says she loves her father a lot, but from the look on Jinya's face, she gets the feeling that he doesn't have the best relationship with his own father. Jinya silently stares at her for a few seconds, so Ofu apologizes if her question made him uncomfortable. But Jinya says it's fine and starts telling the story of his childhood. He explains that he has a little sister, and when they were younger, his father never treated her well. He would constantly beat her and say she didn't belong in the family, so one day, Jinya took Suzu and ran away. Ofu asks Jinya if he hates his father for what happened, but he doesn't. In fact, he can understand why his father reacted the way that he did with everything that has happened since then, but he can't change the past. Later that night, Jinya and Mosuk are out on their usual patrols, and yet again, they find absolutely no trace of the slasher. It looks like the slasher might have gone into hiding since they started looking for him, but on the bright side, that means there haven't been any new victims lately. That said, they won't find anything tonight, so Mosuk suggests they should call it a night. But just then, he notices someone on the other side of the bridge. It turns out to be Ofu, and regardless of what she's doing, it's dangerous for her to be outside alone at this time of night, especially with the slasher on the loose, so Jinya goes over to talk to her. Ofu is surprised to see Jinya out here, so she asks him if he's alone. Jinya tells her he's actually with a friend, but when he turns around, Mosuk is nowhere to be found. He turned invisible so Jinya and Ofu could talk alone, and he reminds him to make sure he walks Ofu home because it's not safe for her to be out by herself. Jinya asks Ofu what she's doing out here at this time of night, so she explains that she was just admiring the snow willow flowers. It got its name because it looks like snow on the branches, but is actually a part of the cherry blossom family. Jinya thinks the flower is pitiful because it pretends to be a willow, yet it is a cherry blossom, so in the end it has no real identity. But Ofu doesn't see it that way. Regardless of whether you think it's a willow or a cherry blossom, the flower still blooms every spring, and its beauty remains all the same. Jinya sees the point that she's trying to make, and he finds it amusing that Flower might have more control over its life than he does. They both laugh about it together, but it's still pretty late, so Jinya offers to walk her home and Ofu happily accepts. While walking home, Ofu tells Jinya he should try relaxing more often since he seems really stressed out. He thinks she might be right since he has been living his life for the sole purpose of achieving a single goal, so he doesn't let himself rest often. Ofu has no idea what Jinya's important goal is, and she has no intention of prying into his personal affairs, but living your entire life for a single goal sounds awfully tiring to her. Jinya admits that it is, but he has nothing else to live for, so he chooses to continue as he is. While walking, Ofu happens to notice some flowers growing next to a wall, so she stops to take a look at them. She asks Jinya if he knows what these are, but he's not much of a botanist, so he says he has no idea. Ofu explains that these are winter daffodils, and they are known to last through the winter until bloom in the spring. Ofu then notices another patch of flowers nearby, and Jinya actually knows what these ones are. They are chickweeds, and he knows this because back in the village he grew up in, it was a popular cure for stomach aches. A childhood friend of his used to take it all the time because she had a habit of eating sweets until her stomach hurt, so Jinya would always have to make sure she got the medicine. Ofu finds the story amusing, and the fact that Jinya can think of a fond memory like that is proof that there's more to his life than one singular purpose. Jinya and Ofu eventually arrive at her house, so she thanks him for escorting her back and starts walking inside. But before she goes, Jinya asks her if she could teach him more about flowers sometime, preferably not at night though. After that, Jinya returns to standing guard in case the slasher shows up, and tonight he is standing guard by the bridge. At one point, a drunk man walks by with a girl following after him. As the girl walks past Jinya, she is mesmerized by how handsome he is. But her bliss doesn't last long because a few seconds later, the drunk man in front gets his body torn to shreds. Jinya immediately springs into action and readies his sword to face the demon. But since the girl is here, he can't use his demon powers. He does his best to kill the demon, but its skin is too hard for his slashes to do any damage, so the best he can do right now is keep the slasher away from the girl. Unfortunately, the slasher manages to get past him and goes after the girl. But just as the slasher is about to take the girl's head off, she is suddenly dragged out of the way by Mosuke. This buys Jinya enough time to attack the demon again, but he still can't cut its skin as he is now, so there's not much he can do. And eventually, the demon manages to find an opening and jumps into the sky to escape before Jinya could slay it. He apologizes to Mosuke for letting the demon get away, but Mosuke tells him it's not his fault because there's no way he could have known that the demon would be that tough. In any case, Mosuke says he's going to try and follow it in hopes of finding its den, so in the meantime, he tells Jinya to take care of the girl he saved. As Mosuke leaves, Jinya turns to the girl and the two stare at each other for a second until she asks him to help her up already. She asks Jinya if he remembers her, but he's got no idea who she is, and the girl is really disappointed. She tells him that she's Natsu, the girl he slayed a demon for 3 years ago. And now that Jinya takes a good look at her, she does look familiar, but she's a lot bigger than she was the last time he saw her. She tells him it's normal for people to change over the years, but oddly, Jinya looks exactly like he did 3 years ago. Jinya asks her why she's out so late at night, so Natsu explains that she's helping her dad with some deliveries for a valued customer. Just then, Zenji comes running up to check on Natsu because he heard a commotion, and he's surprised to see Jinya here of all places. He jokingly asks if Natsu and Jinya are having a late-night affair, but Jinya casually explains that Natsu was nearly killed by the slasher, so he saved her. Although the drunk guy wasn't so lucky. Once Zenji sees the dead body on the floor, he panics and says they need to call the village officials immediately. But Natsu doesn't think that would do any good since the police could never handle a demon. Zenji is surprised to hear that a demon is responsible for this, since he thought the demon that targeted Natsu was gone. But Jinya explains that this is a different demon that he has been tracking for several days now, and the fact that it attacked Natsu is just a coincidence. Zenji really doesn't want to get involved in any more demon trouble, but it's already too late for that, so Jinya tells him that if he or Natsu ever need help with a demon, then they can come find him at a soba shop in Fukubawa. But for now, Jinya needs to keep looking for the slasher, so he starts walking away. But before he leaves, Zenji has something he needs to tell him. If Jinya is planning on searching for the demon, then he might have some luck if he goes to Teramachi. There's an old temple there, but its priest has long since died, so the building was abandoned. However, recently, people have been hearing a lot of female voices coming from it every night, so there are rumors that there might be a demon there. Meanwhile, Mosuke has been trying to follow the demon's trail, but he loses sight of it and has no idea where to start looking. Just then, he hears a woman screaming, and when he looks up, he spots the demon with said woman in its mouth. The sight reminds him of the day he found his wife's corpse by the river, and he won't rest until he has gotten his revenge for what that beast did to her. He chases after the demon and eventually ends up at the gate of an old temple. He doesn't know what he's walking into here, so he turns invisible and carefully walks through the gate. Inside the temple, he spots the demon eating the woman it kidnapped earlier, so he charges in and attempts to stab it with his blade. But considering the fact that his whole power is stealth, charging in carelessly was a dumb move because the demon heard him coming and slashed Mosuke across the stomach. It then turns away to go back to eating while Mosuke bleeds out on the floor. Mosuke can't believe he let something like this happen because now he's going to die without being able to exact his vengeance. He helplessly watches as the demon finishes off the body of the woman, and once it's done, it simply walks past Mosuke because it's not worth the effort to finish him off. A little while later, Jinya arrives at the temple, and he is shocked to find Mosuke injured on the floor. He rushes to his side, and Mosuke apologizes for letting this happen to himself. He tells Jinya that he found the slasher here while it was eating a woman, but he failed to kill it, and it doesn't look like he will survive to try again. So before he draws his final breath, he asks Jinya to take his sword and use it to kill that demon for his sake. This blade was forged in a place called Kadono, and it is meant to be really effective against demons, so it should be helpful in cutting through that thing's skin. Jinya agrees to avenge him and his wife, but in exchange he says he would like permission to use Mosuke's power for the battle. Mosuke eventually dies, so Jinya uses his demon arm to begin absorbing his ability. As he does so, he gets a glimpse into the life that Mosuke lived, how he fled from the other superior demons, how he ended up in this village, and how he and his wife first met. It was just a chance encounter with Mosu bumping into her as he left his house, but over time the two of them grew closer and Mosu didn't want to build his relationship off a lie. So one day he told her the truth about his identity. He expected Hatsu to run away from him in fear once she realized he told her he was a demon, but she just stared at him with a puzzled look on her face and asked why she should care, because whether he's a demon or a human, nothing could ever stop her from loving him. As the flashback ends, Mosu's body vaporizes into a white mist and Jinya vows to carry out his final request. A few hours later, the slasher returns to the temple with another woman, and while it's eating her, it thinks back to the events that led up to this moment. The demon doesn't know how it was born, but from the moment it woke up in this demonic body, it knew that its mission in life was to kill as many men as possible. So that's what it did. The demon mindlessly carried out its purpose, but at the same time, it felt like it was meant to find someone important so it could return home. However, it was well aware of how ugly it looks, so it began seeking out beauty, and the first thing that came to mind was to eat as many beautiful women as possible so it would become beautiful as well. While the demon is still feasting on its latest victim, it suddenly hears someone's voice, and before it knows what's going on, one of its arms is cut off. Jinya is currently using Mosu's ability to hide his presence so the demon can't see him at all. Instead, it tries to attack by following the sound of Jinya's footsteps, but Jinya is too fast for it to keep up with him. With that said, Jinya can't get close enough to finish it off without being hit by one of the demon's powerful slashes. So he disables the invisibility and decides to face it head-on with his demon arm. With the boost in strength from his demon arm, Jinya is easily able to cut the demon's head off in one clean slice. Its head falls to the floor as it writhes around in anguish, but before it dies, Jinya has a question to ask it. It is clear that the demon always killed men on the spot and would kidnap women to eat here. But if that's the case, then their demon couldn't possibly be the one who killed Hatsu because her body wasn't eaten. He asks the demon for its name, and it starts saying it needed a body so it could go home. Jinya doesn't understand what it is talking about, so he picks up its head and says he is going to absorb its power now. The demon's power is called Dart, and it grants a temporary boost in speed, so it will be very useful in battle. Jinya then gets a glimpse into the soul of the demon, and from the visions he sees, he realizes that this demon is really Hatsu. She was attacked by a group of men and then thrown into the river to die. And the entire time she was drowning, all she could think about was how she needed to make it back home to Mosu as fast as possible. Those emotions, combined with the resentment for the men that killed her, is what turned Hatsu into a demon, but sadly her wish could never come true. The next day, Jinya leaves his room because he has some business to take care of, but not before leaving an offering in honor of Mosu and Hatsu. Meanwhile, over at the soba shop, Ofu's father is worried that he might have scared Jinya off because he hasn't come back ever since he mentioned that Jinya could marry Ofu if he wanted. First of all, Ofu reminds him that she never agreed to marry Jinya, and as for why he hasn't been coming to their shop lately, she ran into him a while ago and he said he would come back once his business was finished. Ofu's father thinks that's odd since the slasher killing stopped, so that means Jinya must have slayed the demon responsible. But when Ofu talked to him, Jinya said there were still more demons for him to slay. Later that night, the two men who killed Hatsu are thinking about looking for a new victim now that the other slasher has been dealt with. They joke about how the last woman they killed kept yelling for some dude named Mosu right up until the moment she died, but before they could even take another step forward, Jinya appears from the shadows and cuts them down on the spot. And once he is sure that they are dead, Jinya walks away, having finally fulfilled Mosu's wish to avenge Hatsu. This was the end of episode 4. Subscribe to not miss the next part.